testosterone replacement therapy and hair loss. Will getting on TRT make you lose your hair? The old adage is that testosterone is a hair killer, but does it actually do that? So the answer isn't as clear cut as we would probably like it. It's both a yes and no answer. So we do know that DHT is involved in the hair loss process, what we refer to as androgenic alopecia, which means androgen-induced loss of hair. We know that 5-alpha reductase is involved in that, and so is DHT, because if you give someone a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, such as finasteride, which prevents the conversion of testosterone to DHT, in patients that take it, oftentimes it can mitigate, or at least, it can slow down some hair loss, at least to a certain degree. So we know, yes, DHT is a bystander that is involved in this process. But under the same umbrella of thinking, we've had plenty of patients come to us who are already bald, guys in their 20s, guys in their 30s who are overtly bald, and they have very low testosterone levels and they have very low DHT levels. So that brings the question, was it the DHT, or is it a sensitivity or a certain threshold of DHT that someone has? Or perhaps it's purely genetic predisposition. I'd like to surmise that it's a little bit of everything. Because again, if DHT is the primary only factor that's going to induce androgenic alopecia, then guys who have low testosterone, guys that have low DHT levels, theoretically, they should not be suffering from androgenic alopecia, but that's not what we see. Now, let's take a look at this gentleman's blood work. Now, he is on the testosterone cream, 200 milligrams per milliliter, and he's doing 2 clicks in the morning, which is 100 milligrams in the morning, and 1 click in the evening, which is 50 milligrams, and it is all applied to scrotal tissue. Now, if you're wondering why we are doing a scrotal application, it's because scrotal application is notorious for increasing DHT, given the rich abundance of 5-alpha reductase enzyme in the testicular tissue. That's why I brought this guy's labs up here. So if you see, his total testosterone is 883. His free testosterone, he's sitting at 106, or he could just move the decimal and say 10. Anyway, but his DHT is 300. Now, this is Quest Diagnostics. Their lab range for DHT goes from 12 to 65 nanograms per deciliter. He's at 300. He is 5 times over the reference range for what DHT says. So if you see that, by golly, he should be losing hair, right? Absolutely, right? If we're going under the notion that DHT is going to induce hair loss, this guy should definitely be losing his hair, but he's not. And he's been on this for several years. He's actually cruising along at the same dose. Nothing's changed. He's been there for several years. No complaints of alopecia whatsoever. A lot of the literature has now evolved from saying DHT equals hair loss to now you have a DHT sensitivity issue that is genetically mediated. Now, where that sensitivity lies, who knows? Obviously, if you go bald and you already have low T, you're genetically predisposed and your sensitivity is at a very, very low threshold. Whereas there's other clients like this gentleman I just described that showed you his blood work. His DHT is cruising in the 300s. He's been doing that for years and he's had no complaints whatsoever. So ultimately, it comes down to a genetically mediated sensitivity to a threshold of DHT. But the problem is we don't know where each person lies. I would recommend looking back at all the males in your family that came before you and seeing what did they look like? What was their trajectory like? And if they did start experiencing some degree of alopecia, some degree of hair loss, what point in their life or what age did that occur at? And you got to also evaluate, do they have any comorbidities as well? Thanks for watching. Hope this video sheds a little light. No pun intended whatsoever, onto this topic of DHT and hair loss. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, shoot us a message, or give us a subscribe. Thanks.